some of these concepts are going to be so basic to you, and you're going to look at it, and obviously you're probably going to know it. There's a really intelligent group of people on this call right now, and I assume people as they show up late, they're going to be equally intelligent, right? So you're going to look at some of this, and you're going to say, oh yeah, well, duh, I already knew that, right? Why is he talking about this? Well, it's because this is the first series that we're doing, and a lot of times, we can get caught up in complicated, in complicated things, and we can complicate things. And, it's like they always say, you go back to the fundamentals. And this is a fundamental, right? What we're going to talk about in this 5-part series are going to be the fundamentals of sales, right? And really, if you're in any sales position, whether it's real estate, you sell insurance, you're a mortgage broker, no matter what it is, you're always going to use these principles. Right. And sometimes you'll hear me say it and you'll say, well, yeah, duh, I already knew that. But sometimes you need to hear it for that common sense to come to the front of your mind. Right. So, what I'm asking is that you come into this with an open mind. And as we get through this series, we're going to start another series, or we may just do individual trainings, but they're all going to be in the vein of to make you a better salesperson, a better agent, just better overall at what you do, and to master your craft just a little bit better, right? Some of them, as we go, they're going to be more complex. We're going to talk about real estate investing. We'll talk about short-term investing, the vacation rental, platform. We'll talk about long-term investing, right? We'll talk about flip investing, right? These things are all more complex subjects, obviously, but this is where we start. Right, this is where we're going to begin. We're going to talk about some very simple principles if you've heard about it. So this 5-part series is on the Pareto principle. You can go to the next slide, please. This 5-part series is going to be on the Pareto principle, and basically what that is that's the 80-20 rule, right? And what is the 80-20 rule? Well, it was kind of noticed by Vilfredo Pareto. He's an economist, sociologist from Italy, and what he had realized at some point was that, well, 80% of the land in the country of Italy was owned by just 20% of the population, right? And vice versa. So if 80% owns 20, then 20% owns 80, right? And that kind of brought this idea or this concept to the front of his mind. And as this concept was in his mind, obviously he's a sociologist, he's a mathematician, he's thinking about these things. So he's paying attention, and so he's looking, okay, where else does this rule apply, right? He noticed, so he's going out, he's looking at gardens, right? And he noticed that just 80% of garden peas were produced by 20% of the pea pods, right? So what does this tell us? This tells us that, well, there's a principle, a universal principle out there that tells us that 80% of a result can be obtained by just 20% of a cause, right? Next slide, please. Let's talk about an example here, right? Let's say so the first principle that we're going to cover here is going to be lead generation, right? And the other ones will be revealed as we go through. Some of you have heard me talk about this before. Members of the team, you definitely know what the 20% is because we talk about this ad nauseum. They will attest to the fact that I bring up the 20% a lot. Literally, in your day-to-day operations, these are the only things that you really should be focused on, in my opinion, right? And until you have these down, until you have enough leads, and you've gone through this cycle enough times, this is all you should worry about, right? There's nothing else to worry about. 80% of your time should be focused on these 20% of things. Next slide. So let's talk about an example here. Let's say we come into some money, right? And we decide that, let's say, let's see, who am I going to go into business with? I'm going to go into business with Irene today. Now let's go into business with Lisa because her screen is on, or her camera's on. So I'm going to go into business with Lisa. We both come into some money, right? Say we got, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000. And we say, well, what kind of business do we want to start, right? Let's start a landscaping company. That's simple enough, right? You can't really mess up a landscaping company. You go mow some lawns, trim some hedges, you do all that kind of stuff, right? Well, how do we start a landscaping company? Well, sit down and we start thinking about, well, what kind of equipment do we need to run this landscaping company? Well, we need a truck, we need a trailer, we need the lawnmowers, some weed whackers, some hedge trimmers, leaf blowers, like whatever else we need, what are we going to do, right? So we go out and we say, okay, well, we're going to have a beautiful landscape company. So let's go out and let's go buy this beautiful truck. We probably don't need a semi, but let's say that we go out and we buy a brand new Chevy Silverado, F-250 with dually tires, and this thing, it's a $90,000 truck. Let's go buy this $90,000 truck. Now we have a truck payment, right? Because we don't have that much money, so we go out and get a truck payment. And then we need a trailer where we have to haul our equipment, right? So let's go to the trailer dealership. Let's go buy us a brand new, enclosed trailer with, the V front, and it's got all the lights and the backup and all that, right? Let's go buy this beautiful trailer. We need all of the equipment. We're gonna buy a brand new John Deere tractor, all these things, right? We say, okay, we got everything. We got everything we need, right? And we stop, we sit down, and and we say, well, let's meet at McDonald's tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and we'll talk about the business, right? And we'll get started. So tomorrow morning comes, we say, okay, we're meeting at McDonald's. We sit down at McDonald's, we're eating breakfast, and we're talking about how excited we are. Finish our breakfast, and we're just kind of like, well, what next? Right? We have nowhere to go. We have nothing to do. We have nowhere to be. We have this beautiful, beautiful business. It's an amazing, right? It's beautiful. It's brand new equipment. It's all ready to go. We don't have any customers, right? We didn't even focus on number one in the 20%, right? We're not focused on lead generation, right? We were focused on building the business, right? We were working on the business. We were not working in the business. And unfortunately, this is what happens to a lot of people when they get into sales positions, right? They worry about, designing their business cards. They worry about, their, what is their social media pages? What do they look like, right? What's all these beautiful things on there that they need to have on there, right? They need the nice images, and they need all of these things, right? Well, let's say we took a different approach in starting our landscaping company, right? We took what we have laying around, okay? That truck barely runs, I'm sure, right? It doesn't even have headlights. It's the ugliest truck you've ever seen, but let's say it runs, right? That's a truck I have that's in my driveway. We use that truck. Okay, we can use my truck. Oh, I also happen to have a lawnmower and a weed whacker and a leaf blower in my shed already. They're kind of old, but they work, right? They get the job done. So let's just use those. And Lisa has she has a riding lawnmower, that her uncle said that she could have. Great. We've already got our business, right? We don't need to go out and go buy all this equipment and source it all and go find it, right? Our business already exists in what we need, right? Literally what we need is already there. So instead of spending all this time going out and getting all this stuff and working on all of this beautiful equipment, what do? We go knock on some doors, right? We say, okay, well, what's a nice neighborhood, right? Let's go to Parkland. Let's go to Parkland. They got big yards, they got a lot of land. They got it's a wealthy city. They got money. They're probably looking for people to take care of the yards. Let's go to Parkland. Let's look for some lawns that are just a little bit overgrown. Start knocking on some doors, right? Pick up some customers, get some stuff scheduled, right? Okay, cool. We got some things going on. Let's meet tomorrow morning at McDonald's, and we'll get ready to go. Right? So we meet, same thing. We go to McDonald's, we go meet, we're sitting down, we're having breakfast. Difference here is we have business, right? So we have to scarf down our breakfast. We have to hurry up and eat because now we have an appointment to go on, right? So that's the difference in the 80% and the 20%. And unfortunately, like I previously said, most people focus on their 80%, right? Everything must be perfect. Everything must be beautiful. Everything must be something, when what really we should be doing is focusing on our 20%, right? Because the 20% of your business, the 20% of the tasks that you do in your day, just these simple 20% is going to lead to 80% of your business, right? So number one, lead generation. Because if you don't have a lead, you don't really have a business, right? You may have a real estate license, you may have E&O insurance, you may be a member of an association, like you can have all of these things, but do you have a business, right? How could you? Because you don't have the customer. The customer doesn't exist for you because you spent so much time building these other things and making everything else so beautiful that you didn't have time to do what you're really supposed to do. It doesn't matter what kind of truck you drive if you have a lawn to mow, right? It doesn't matter what kind of truck you drive if you don't have a lawn to mow. Does it matter what you do in your real estate business if you don't have a customer to show a house to? None of that matters, right? So as basic and as simple as this principle is, this is the number one thing that if you don't have a customer, you should be focusing on nothing else. There's literally nothing else in your business that you should be doing than how do I find a customer? Next slide, please. Let's talk about how do you find a customer, right? Well, you have two options or a combination of the two, right? Sweat equity versus checkbook equity, right? Depends on your budget. Depends on what's important to you, right? Depends on your time, right? What do you have more of? Do you have more time or do you have more money? Or do you have none? I don't know what you do then. But let's say you don't have very much money, but you have a whole lot of time, right? And this is how I started in real estate. Quit everything, shut everything down, just jumped right into real estate. I mean, I would cold call. I would cold call some days 12, 14 hours a day. All I did. Built my business cold calling, right? That's literally all I did. That's more sweat equity, right? Now, it did take a little bit of money. I needed the dialer. I needed the leads. I had to spend a little bit of money, but it was mostly time that I was spending doing this because I didn't have a lot of money, right? I jumped right into real estate. It was going to be full time for me. I didn't have a part-time job, right? I cashed everything in and I said, okay, I'm going all in on real estate. This is what I'm going to do. And it took time to build it, right? But finally we did something and it looked, we're doing okay now, right? But it was sweat equity because I didn't have a lot of money. And there are things that you can do that don't take a lot of money. So if the budget is short, right? If you have a slim budget and you don't have a lot of money to spend on getting leads, then you need to think about what actions can I take, right? Where can I spend my time where it's going to be the most effective? Well, that's your sweat equity. This is your time, right? The example that we give is door knocking. Door knocking costs basically nothing, right? You drive to a neighborhood, you park your car, you got some flyers in hand. Well, what are on the flyers, right? Maybe some listings in the neighborhood, maybe a value proposition that you have to offer if they list their house with you, right? Maybe you're door knocking because you're doing an open house in the neighborhood, right? It doesn't really matter the reason that you're knocking on that door, right? Because you're going to find that person, no matter what reason you're knocking on that door, that person's situation didn't change, right? The person that's selling their house today, their situation didn't change because you knocked on the door to advertise an open house versus you knocked on their door just to tell them that you just listed a house in the neighborhood and see if they have a buyer or a friend that wants to live in the neighborhood. It doesn't matter why you knocked on the door. It just matters that you knocked on the door and you happen to be in the right place at the right time to talk to that homeowner that's ready to sell their house. Right? Now, most people don't want a door knock. Awkward. It's uncomfortable. Right? Most people want to do this other one, checkbook equity. Buy a lead. Pay for leads. You don't want a door knock. You don't want a cold call. You don't want to network. You don't want to do these things that require you to be there in person, that require your time, your effort. Then you got to open up your checkbook. You don't have a choice. Because how else are you going to get leads? You're spending your time or your money, or a combination of. Next slide. So this is where it gets super basic, right? You're going to know all of these sources. You're going to know everything about these sources, right? This is super common sense, super basic, but we're going to talk about them anyway, right? We're going to break down, okay, what are these, what are these lead techniques that you can be doing if you don't have enough leads, right? If you're not generating enough leads, well, what should you be doing, right? These are in no particular order, right? But these are things that you need to give some serious consideration to. And at the end of this presentation, everybody that's here, we're gonna email you a document that we put together that is way more comprehensive than these, but these are some of our favorites, right? Me personally, if you know me, I network a lot, right? Or I used to network a lot. I still network, I guess not as much as I used to. But networking is a huge source of business, right? Now, networking isn't just going to like a biz to biz event. You go to one and you hand out, you kind of hand out your cards to everybody. You take the business cards and then you go home and your phone just starts ringing. It doesn't work that way, right? If you're going to go to a biz to biz, you better go to all the biz to biz. And you better see who is the person that is showing up consistently, right? Who's the person that I've been to 5 of these and they've been to all 5 of them, right? Because that's the person that you were going to want to build that relationship with because they're showing up, right? Grab their info. Later on, all these business cards that you grabbed, you might want to grab a cup of coffee with them. They're not going to just call you. Everybody that goes to a biz to biz event, they're there to get business for themselves. They're not there to give you business. Nobody goes to networking events necessarily to give business. They go to networking events to get business, right? So you have to flip their paradigm. You have to stop them from thinking about getting their own business to giving you business, right? We all know somebody that lives in a home, right? We all know somebody that, that has a roof over their head. We all know somebody that needs to live in a home in order to survive and exist, right? Because that's everybody, right? So every person that you talk to at that networking event is a potential source of business, right? But they don't know you, right? And you're talking about what is likely the largest transaction that somebody's going to do in their lifetime, and they're not going to just say, "Oh yeah, my mom's getting ready to sell her, $600,000 house in Coral Springs. Hey, you came to a biz to biz event and took all the free drinks. She should list it with you." No, you have to build that relationship, right? Don't network wrong. Don't go there and just hand out a bunch of business cards and expect a phone call because it'll never happen. You're going to waste your time. That sweat equity is just going to leave a sweat, no equity, right? What about referrals, right? Same thing. You meet somebody at a biz to biz event. Say you don't know an insurance agent, right? Well, maybe you can build that. Maybe you can build that relationship with somebody where you reciprocate business, right? We have a rule on our team, right? Because we have what we call preferred partners. And what preferred partners are is they're professionals and they're vendors that we've worked with in the past that have proven their reputation, right? You have 2 requirements in order to be a preferred partner in our team, and 2 requirements only, right? The number 1 requirement is you better be good. If you want to receive a referral from us, you better be good. If you drop the ball on us, if we give you a lead, if we give you a customer that we trusted you with and you drop the ball on that customer, you will never receive another referral from us ever again, right? But if you prove yourself, we give you a lead and you prove that you are good and that you can be trusted and that you are, that you do take this customer serious, then you're gonna get the referral from us, right? And the next thing that we require from a preferred partner is reciprocity. Right? So don't meet an insurance agent and sign over all of your insurance policies to them and say, "Oh, I'm going to give you all my insurance," right? And expect that they're going to just automatically think that, "Oh, okay, somebody gave me all of their insurance. I better give them all of my homeowners that are buying a home or selling a home, doing whatever." They don't think that way. You have to make it clear. So number 1, you better be good. And number 2, there better be room for reciprocity, meaning you need to add value to my business as well, right? If I'm feeding your family, then you also need to feed my family, right? So just be clear when you're talking to people that you want to build a referral relationship with. Don't sit down with an insurance agent and talk about how you can give them so much business. Who cares, right? Insurance agents are like real estate agents. They're a dime a dozen. It doesn't matter. You're here for yourself. You're here to build business for yourself. So naturally, when you're meeting with this person, when you're talking to them, you need to go over these things. Hey, look, I got 2 requirements. Number 1, you better be good. And number 2, there needs to be room for reciprocity. If you're giving leads to all these other realtors, if I'm giving you all this business and you're giving all the business to another realtor, there's no room for us to have a relationship because you're not the only good insurance agent around town. Right? There's plenty more talented and good insurance. We're not the only good real estate agents, right? There better be some value in it for you. So when you go networking, you go with the purpose. When you're giving referrals, you give a referral with the purpose that you expect something in return. Maybe it's not a customer. Maybe it's a marketing budget, right? Maybe they go 50-50 on Zillow with you. I don't know. It doesn't matter, right? Figure out what you need in your business. What do you need in your company today? And be intentional about receiving that from that person, right? Although dialing for dollars, cold calling. Like I said before, I built my business on cold calling. Expireds, for sale by owners, for rent by owners, geographic leads, just listed, just sold. There's a million ways that you can call people. There's a million reasons why you can call people, right? It doesn't matter, right? Pick your list and set it up. Same thing as a referral. Be intentional about why you're calling them, right? And the next training, and the second part of your 20%, we're going to talk about some objectives that you need to have when you're dialing for dollars, right? Because what you don't want to do is just call them up. Hey, your house expired. Do you want to list it? No. Okay, bye. Sweat equity just got wasted. A lot of sweat, no equity. You need to be intentional about these phone calls. And we're going to cover dialing for dollars a little bit more in the next one. We're going to teach you a little bit on how to do it. There's actually 5 objectives that when we make a phone call for the team, there's 5 objectives that we have to hit. And each of those 5 objectives are going to take you through your 20%. From 1, going to move you to number 2, to 3, and when you're lucky, you're going to get to number 5, right? Open houses, flyers, door knocking, right? To me, flyers and door knocking are synonymous with open houses, because when we do an open house, we do flyers and door knocking. Dialing for dollars is synonymous with open houses, because when we do an open house, we dial for dollars, right? These things come together. They synergize with each other, right? There's certain activities, there's certain things that you do that are going to require you to use more than one lead source, right? If you do an open house and you just put a sign in the yard, one sign in the yard that says open house, you did it wrong, right? If you did an open house and you have 25 open house signs all over all the major roads pulling them in, you called every neighbor, you dropped off flyers to every neighbor, you did a Facebook campaign, right? If you did it that way, then you did it right, and you're going to get people to show up. Because an open house is basically pure sweat equity. A little bit of checkbook, you want to make a Facebook campaign, you want to make some events, that's fine. But really, it's pure sweat equity. So if you sit there at an open house and you didn't do any of these other things, that's literally what you're going to be doing. You're going to be sitting there at that open house, right? But if you did all of these other things, you're going to be talking to people, right? Because this is in-person lead generation techniques. These are things that you're in person and you need people, man, right? What's the goal of an open house? I'm going to give you a hint. It's not to sell the house, right? The dirty little secret about holding an open house is not to sell the house. Now, that's not to say we won't sell the house at an open house. That's not to say we're not trying to sell that house at an open house. But by and large, 99% of the people that show up at an open house aren't going to buy that house. But there is a percentage of them that are going to buy a house, right? You need to generate that lead. You need to collect their contact information. By the way, I said 99%. Just remember also that 99% of the statistics are made up on the spot. I don't really know what that number is. I made it up. But for the most part, people don't buy the house that they walk into at the open house. I think in the history of my career, with every open house I've ever done, I've only sold that house to one person that's walked in, right? Maybe I just wasn't very good, but I can tell you that there's been numerous customers that have come out of an open house that we've converted, and they did buy another house. Or the neighbor comes over and I build a relationship with the neighbor and I sell the neighbor's house down the road, right? Because I focused on number 2 in my 20%, right? Which ties in with number 1. Next slide, please. Online lead generation techniques. If you're not doing the basic, then you're not doing it right. If you don't have your social media stuff set up, if you're not on every single social media, there's platforms out there that will post to your social media for you automatically, right? If you're not copying and pasting or sharing what other, real estate related companies are doing, or what our company ourselves are doing onto your social media, then you're not doing it right. Right? Because do your friends and family know that you're a real estate agent? Now, don't be overwhelming with it. Right? Do you have your business page separate from your personal page? Do you have a Facebook business page? Do you have a Facebook personal page? Right? Do you have Google My Business? Can people find you and find your Google directly on there? Right? Do you know what geotagging is? Right? So it's a little bit more advanced, but social media, I mean, everybody's doing it, right? You don't have a choice, right? You really don't have a choice. If you're looking for leads, you don't have a choice, because even if you go on a listing appointment, right? If you go on a listing appointment and you get that certain profile of person at the listing appointment, they're going to stalk you. They're gonna find you on social media and see, who's this person that's coming into my house, right? Are they a successful real estate agent? Do they know what they're doing, right? If they don't see anything posted real estate related to social media, if they only see that you're going to the bars on Friday night and getting drunk with your friends and doing that, right? That's going to affect you, right? So my social media, my business page is wide open for everybody. My personal page is blocked. Right? I don't know, and I'm guilty. I don't do so much social media on my personal side, but the business side, you do see a lot of business posts, right? So when people look for me or they look for my company, they'll find what I want them to see, right? Our message is tailored for them to come to stalk me and see what I want them to see, right? Email marketing. Do you have a newsletter? Are you communicating with people on a regular basis through email? It's easy. It's super, super easy, right? Especially if you have a CRM that will just bulk blast a bunch of the same email to a bunch of people all at once. Some of you guys might get our emails that we send out bulk blast all at once, right? I didn't sit down and type that message automatically. That went out with a group of other emails, right? What about a newsletter? Could you create a newsletter? Are you in a certain community where you could focus on just doing a newsletter and teaching them about what's going on in the community? You become the local expert, right? But if you're not sending out emails, which is like the easiest thing to do, you're missing out on free marketing, because an email literally costs $0 to send, right? An email is pure sweat equity. There's no checkbook involved unless you pay for somebody to do it for you. Content marketing. Do you create content? Right? Are there videos of you somewhere out there in the social media world showing that you're the expert in your field or your industry? Right? Are you teaching people? Are you providing value? A lot don't, right? Videos suck, right? But there's a lot of people doing it, and a lot of people are doing it at a high level, right? They're posting every single day and they're consistent with it. Whatever content you decide to do, right? Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a podcast, whether it's videos, whether it's just, blogging. It doesn't matter what content you do. What matters is that you're consistent. So make a schedule. And it doesn't matter if you do it every day, every week, every month. It doesn't matter the consistency or the frequency that you do it. All that matters is that you're consistent with doing it. If you create a newsletter that goes out every month, that newsletter better go out every month, because somebody's looking for it, right? And if you miss a month, you weren't consistent. Make sure it goes out. Advanced. I'm not going to talk too much about this, right? First of all, some of this requires you have a website. We're going to have an offer at the end that we're going to talk about. We will provide you with a website. It's going to provide you with pretty much everything on here. But you would need that first. So, SEO, lead capture forms, landing pages, right? Online advertising, you could probably do that. You can make some Google ads if you want. But all of them are going to require some sort of website, right? So if you don't have a website, you can't even get into the advanced. I don't think you should focus on these yet. Next slide, please. These are my favorites. Right here, these are going to be your highest level of conversion possible, right? Sphere of influence. Who's your sphere of influence, right? Well, imagine like a target, right? Like a dartboard, and it's got the different rings, right? Well, your sphere of influence are in those first couple of rings, right? Those are the people that you have the most influence over. It could be your friends, it could be your family. If you have another job, it could be your coworkers, it could be past clients, right? It's whoever respects you, whoever loves you, whoever values you. It's your raving fans. It's the people that want to see you succeed. Not every friend, not every family member, not every coworker wants to see you succeed. Just because they're friends, family, or coworkers doesn't mean that they're in your sphere of influence, right? I was telling somebody yesterday, right? You know, most people, they want to see you do good, but those same people don't want to see you do better than them, right? So just keep that in mind. And as you go, especially when you're a new real estate agent, you're going to figure out who's in your corner, because you're going to have that friend, you're going to have that family member, you're going to have that coworker that's going to come to you and they're going to tell you that they're buying a house with another agent. It happens to everybody. It's happened to me more than once. You're going to follow up with the past client because you didn't do a great job keeping in touch with them after the closing, and they're going to tell you that they already sold their house and they bought another one, right? So you need to figure out who are these people that are specifically in your sphere of influence. This is also going to be part of the next training, right? We're going to teach you how to contact your sphere of influence. We're going to teach you how to categorize your sphere of influence. We're going to teach you how to treat your sphere of influence, right? These leads don't cost you anything but some time. Maybe a little bit of humility, because you do have to pick up the phone and you do have to ask for the work. But if you're brave enough to pick up the phone, you're brave enough to ask them for the work, maybe you pick up the phone and you ask them to go grab a cup of coffee with you. Hey, let's just catch up, right? And maybe it just happens to come up that, you know, to your friend or, you know, somebody that you haven't been in touch with for a long time. Hey, by the way, I'm a real estate agent. Do you happen to know anybody that's looking to buy or sell a house right now? Again, going back to the previous point, we all know somebody that lives in a house, I think, right? We all know somebody that needs a roof over their head to survive, I think, right? It's kind of like a basic human need. So doesn't it make logical sense that maybe a large amount of people out there in the population know somebody that's looking to buy, sell, rent, invest, to make some sort of real estate transaction, right? So if you sit down for a cup of coffee with enough people, business will come out of it. I do this personally. The team will tell you. My goal is to have one business meeting with an individual person in my sphere of influence every week. Every single week. I do it every week, except for last week, I got sick. But besides last week, I do it every single week. What will the team also tell you? They'll also tell you that business comes out of me doing this, right? Grab a cup of coffee, pick up the phone, call somebody in your sphere of influence that needs to be reminded who you are and what you do, and that's everybody, right? Just because people know you're a real estate agent doesn't mean that they know that they should be giving you referrals. You have to train these people. You have to train the people in your sphere of influence. If you don't train them, then you can't get mad at them when they tell you that one of their other friends is buying a house and, oh, I forgot you're a real estate agent. I thought you did something else. Not their fault. It's your fault. Can't blame nobody else. You didn't buy them a cup of coffee. A cup of coffee costs you a large commission, right? And farming. Farming, when's the best time to start a farm, right? Well, it's kind of like that question, when's the best time to plant a tree? Well, the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago, right? But, all right, well, I didn't plant a tree 30 years ago. When's the next best time to plant a tree? Right freaking now. Right now. When's the best time to start a farm? Well, I would say 10 years ago, right? Or the day you got your license. You should have started a farm. You didn't. Maybe you did. I don't know. I'm assuming. I don't think anybody in here has a farm, but I don't know. You don't have one. When should you start one? Probably right now. Why? Because just like a tree growing, it takes time, right? You're farming. How does farming start? Right? You got to till the soil. You got to fertilize and do whatever. You got to plant the seeds. You got to water the seeds. You miss any of those steps, it'll probably fail, right? If you didn't prepare the soil before you put a seed in it, it may not have the nutrients that it needs. I'm not a farmer, so most of my plants die, full disclosure. But I probably know how to do it, right? But real estate farming, it's the same basic concepts as garden farming, right? It takes effort. It takes time. It's a lot of sweat equity. A lot of the things that I talked about in the previous things, you're going to do when you farm as well. You're going to cold call. You're going to drop flyers, just listed, just sold. Doesn't matter if it's your listing necessarily. Maybe you drop some data on the neighborhood, right? Maybe you want to farm a 300 unit condo building, right? And every month you put together a newsletter about this 300 unit condo building, and you email it. Right? And then you also compile all the data in the MLS that shows all of the active, pending, and sold listings that were in that condo building. Right? And you mail that. You put it on a postcard and you mail it. If you do it consistently, right? Maybe you pick up the phone and you cold call every owner in there. And then you also look up the absentee owners, the ones that have rentals in there, and you call them also. Right? It's unlimited. Maybe you create a website. Maybe you market to them specifically in social media. Right? Sooner or later, what do you become? You become the neighborhood expert. You know every freaking thing that happens in that building. You know every unit that's sold. You know this finish gets you this price per square foot. You know this finish gets you this price per square foot. You know everything. Right? But it takes time to build that reputation. Because in the beginning, you're annoying. I'm telling you. Like, you're going to call people, they're going to be annoyed to hear from you. You're gonna send them something in the mail, they'll look at it, they're going to dump it in the trash. But sooner or later, you're going to hit that person that has that need. They're selling in there. They have a friend that's buying in there. Oh, I'm going to call the local expert. Well, who's that? Well, that's the person that hits me from every single medium possible once, twice, 3 times, 4 times per month, right? They've hit me on everything. They know all the events that happen in here. They're an expert in selling. They know how much price per square foot, right? Well, what's the farm? Well, where do you want to live in 5 years? There's your farm, right? What neighborhood do you want to live in 5 years? There's your farm. We'll talk about farming again. That's going to be another training that we're going to do out into the future. There is some other criteria with it. If you want more info on it, if you're interested in starting a farm, you want some more info and some more details about it, it's not real complicated, but we will be designated in training specifically for farming. But these two should definitely be doing, because farming will get you through the tough times. Sphere of influence will get you through the tough times, right? These people that actually want to see you succeed, they'll be your greatest advocates. I've got customers that we've done 8, 9, 10 deals with, right? I've got other customers that have given me 5, 6, 7 referrals. Everybody they ever hear of, they just give us the referrals. I'm sure other agents in here have the same stories, because that's your sphere of influence. They know you, they like you, they trust you. And when they know that you're the best, they're more than happy to give your information. When you do a great job for them, they're more than happy to give you more business. Next slide. Paid leads. This is if you don't want to do any work, right? I mean, these ones I don't recommend. I don't like these personally. These are your lowest leverage because you're spending money on them. Paid lead sources: Zillow, Realtor.com, ZBuyer, Trulia, right? You could set a budget aside, say I got $500 a month, and I'm going to go buy leads from these sources, right? And they might be selling it to 3 other real estate agents. These ones, in my opinion, are the hardest ones to convert, right? Because these leads, you know, they go into these major platforms, and they don't know who you are, they don't know whatever, they just want to look at the property. Sometimes they don't. A lot of times they just entered their information so they could find out a key piece of information about the property. But these ones, they end up costing a lot of money, and you better work them hard. You've got to work them hard. You can't drop the ball on these leads because they cost you a lot of money. So those ones, the paid lead sources. Then you have paid at closing lead sources. These ones I don't dislike as much. We use these in our office quite a bit, right? And again, we've got an infographic that has a bunch of these. Redfin, Ojo, OpCity, Fast Expert, right? There's a whole slew of companies that specialize in giving you a lead that up front costs you $0, right? Costs you $0. We have an agent in our office right now that got a lead for a multi-million-dollar lead from one of these sources, right? Now, what's the catch? Because leads aren't free, but it's exactly like it says, paid at closing lead source. So it costs you no money up front, but you do have to sign a contract agreeing to pay a referral fee at closing, right? But these are great. These ones are great because they don't cost you anything up front. If you never convert them, doesn't matter. You didn't pay for it, right? So you can drop the ball on them a little bit. You shouldn't. You should never drop the ball, but you can, right? Because it doesn't have that impact to your checkbook equity, right? These are sweat equity up front, checkbook equity in the back, right? I highly recommend these for anybody. We have access. OpCity is one. It's owned by Realtor.com, I think, and only certain offices have access to OpCity. We're one of them, so if you want to be added to that list, we can. If you go into Trello, which we're going to show you shortly here on where you can find a lot of this information in Trello, you'll see the infographic that has all of these. If you don't have any business, you should be registered in every single one of these. Why not? It costs you $0 up front, and it could potentially gain you that multi-million-dollar customer in the back, right? When is 30% of something worse than 100% of nothing? Pay a referral fee. Who cares, right? Because without that referral fee, you probably wouldn't have that customer. People get upset and whatever about referral fees. But if that referral fee causes money to go into your pocket, then who cares? Pay the referral fee. Because it's better to have a little bit of something than a whole lot of nothing. Next slide. So now, 64-4 rule. You're like, wait a second. This was 80-20. This is Pareto. Well, now you have a decision to make, right? Because it's going to be very difficult to do everything that we just talked about. And there's more lead sources than even these. These are just some of our favorites, some of the bigger ones, some of the more popular ones that you hear about. But what do you need to figure out? You need to figure out what's the 20% of the 20%. What's my 4%? Right? So your 4% are the things that you're going to do that's on that we just went over. Right? That's what you need to figure out. Can't do it all. And if you do, you're going to be overwhelmed, right? You do one thing. Here's our rule. We have a lot of rules. Here's our rule for lead sources for the team. I'll do one thing, and I'll commit to it for 6 months up to a year, right? And depending on those results, I'll either continue doing it or not. But I'm not going to start doing 7 things all at once because they'll all fail. I'll do one thing at a time. As I get that system figured out, as I get it organized, then I'll figure out, okay, maybe we need to add another source to it. You're going to build on your 4% slowly, right? Add one lead source. Get all your systems set up. Get everything set up so you don't drop the ball on that lead source when a lead comes in. Get some results from that lead first. Then figure out, is there a budget to do another lead source? Same thing. Repeat what you did with the first one. Now, is there a budget to do another? right? But don't overwhelm yourself trying to take on all of these things all at once. If you're doing none of it now, if you start even doing 3 of them at the same time, you're going to fail. Do 1. Find your 4%, right? Break down what is your 20% of the 20%. What is that 4% of things on here that we talked about that you're going to do? And that's what you should be doing. And leave the 80% behind. Your business card design, I hate to tell you, doesn't matter. Right? That magnet that you stuck to the side of your car, what that thing looks like, doesn't matter. You don't need the most beautiful business in the world. You don't need to do everything, but you do need to do something. Next slide. This is it. Literally, it doesn't matter what you do. It only matters that you do something. And when you do something, it matters that you commit to it, to being consistent and persistent. Right? So how long are you going to do this? I'm going to cold call. Okay, who am I going to call? Expireds only. I'm not going to call anybody else. I'm going to become a master at selling expired listings before I decide I'm going to start calling for sale by owners. Oh, look, I've mastered expired listing. I'm calling them all. I'm getting a good conversion rate. You know, I know that I need to dial 150 phone numbers to get 1 appointment. I need to go on 3 appointments to get 1 sale. 450 dials to get 1 sale. Not bad, right? I think I could flip over now to calling for sale by owners, right? What's your conversion rate on those, right? Don't do it all at once, because you have to be consistent and you have to be persistent. Don't give up. How long are you going to dial for? Next.